About 2 weeks ago, I was on the city bus on my way to the mall where I work at. This is a trip that I make about 7 or 8 times a week on average, and it's a fairly long ride. So there I was sitting in my usual seat, minding my own business. Headphones in, messing around on my phone, just keeping to myself. When a man who had gotten on at the same stop as me shifted into the seat next to me. This guy was bigger than me, in a ratty t-shirt and shorts. He looked pretty dirty, like the way you get after being outside for a while on a hot day, and his eyes were open really wide and were a little scary. He tried to get my attention, so I took one headphone out and I gave it to him. When I did, he started mumbling, "I know I'm not a very attractive male, but I find you very attractive," and I cut him off, knowing where this was going, and said, "I have a boyfriend." He got a little more gruff at this and insisted, "Would you take my phone number?" To which I quickly replied, "No," and I put my headphones back in, turning back to the window, just wanting this to be over. He moved back to his seat, and for a few minutes, I stared out the window and listened to the music. I felt kind of bad and thought about apologizing for being so blunt about it. It's just that if I dance around a rejection like that, in an attempt to spare feelings, oftentimes the guy doesn't get it, or he keeps pushing until I'm really uncomfortable. I felt guilty until I listened to past my music and heard a loud conversation going on near me. And taking my headphones out, I could hear the same guy yelling out an insane and angry rant that was directed at me. At the point that I tuned in at, he was saying something about hurting himself. He was calling me a tease and saying that I let him on, that I didn't give him any good reason, and why wouldn't I just take his phone number. I had said exactly 5 words to the guy, and 4 of them were, "I have a boyfriend," a pretty valid reason. Besides, I don't know him a reason for not being interested. And then he got in a rage about how apparently the sunlight was reflecting off my phone and into his eyes, and I was sending him mixed signals. At this point, I got out and I readied my pepper spray, just in case. I'm a very small woman, about 5'2", 118, and he was much bigger than me. He got up, apparently too upset to even sit near me, and stormed to the front of the bus. As he passed me, he looked me right in the eye and said, "Be glad I don't have a gun," and put 2 fingers to his head and pulled the trigger. His ranting just got louder and worse when he sat towards the front of the bus. It would vary between angry growling that I could barely hear, to shouting directly at me, and he called me a lot of bad things, said something referring to between my legs, made a comment about how someday someone would take it from me, and he said a whole slew of things, a lot of which sounded crazy and incoherently threatening. I was scared and I was terrified. Not a single person on the bus seemed to notice this man harassing me, these horrible things that he was saying. I sat there as stiff as a board, clutching my pepper spray, scared to ignore him completely in case he got up again and came after me. It was at this point that the driver, a young woman, pulled the bus over and told him that he needed to leave. He argued with and yelled at her, eventually saying that he would just shut up, and that he needed to be on this bus. She shrugged and picked up the radio, presumably to call the cops. At this point, he gave in and he got off the bus. When I got to my stop at the end of the route, I waited to be the last person, and I thanked the driver, who immediately asked me if I was okay, and told me that a man getting off had alerted her to what was going on, and she was amazed that no one else was doing anything about it. She told me her words that if he hadn't gotten off when he did, she was about to mess him up. I thanked her again and I got to work, where it took me several hours to even stop shaking. I spent the whole shift scared that he caught the next bus and was headed for the mall, and then he would see me and find out where I worked at. I spent the next week terrified that he would find me at the bus stop that we both got on at, or on the bus, and this time he would have that gun. Like I said, I have to take that bus upwards of 7 times a week. So, I want to start this by saying that at the time, I was 14 and in the ninth grade. I knew that this guy was creepy and had a bad feeling through the entire encounter. Even years later, it still makes me uneasy. It happened a long time ago, but it was so unsettling that I remember most of the encounter, but some of it is paraphrased. Now to the story. It was finals week and we got out a few hours early, so my grandpa was going to pick me up from school so I could go to the library near my house. He and my grandma lived about 30 minutes away from me. This happened while I was in joggers and a t-shirt, too tired from testing to be bothered with how I looked. I looked every bit the 14-year-old that I was. So, I was making my way toward a secluded part of the library reading, and I was curled up in a chair when a guy, he came up and noticed me. A few minutes later, he did make his way over. Now, this set off red flags as I was alone, and nobody was really around as it was in the middle of the day, and he was obviously pretty older than me. "Hey, what's your name?" I was uncomfortable, but I was trying not to be rude. My name is... It's redacted for now." "Oh, that's really nice. How old are you?" 14. At this point, my heart was pounding and my hands were shaking because I had awful social anxiety. "Man, that's cool. I thought you looked older. I'm 21. You know, you're really pretty and I'm sure you're still in school. What do you want to do when you get older?" I was gathering my things and trying to get out of there. A vet." That's nice, you know. I can pay your way through college. I do it for people all the time and it's no problem." In my head, I really needed to get out of there. Okay. I have a business card out in my car. Want to come with me to get it? It'll only take a minute." "No thanks." "You sure? Here, I'll just give you my number instead." He pulled out his paper and wrote his number on it. I immediately escaped the children's section of the library and hid there and watched as he left. I ripped up his phone number and threw it away. He was really creepy in the fact that he said all those things to me, and I was a kid at the time, and then he said he did it to other girls too. No way, I've watched too many true crime shows for that. I tried to never go to the library alone after that, just in the fear of crossing paths with that guy again. Many moons ago, when I was but a young teenager, I was prone to thinking the best of everyone. What an epic downfall at times. I was lucky though. I had an older protective brother, a loving mother, and a father who was a cop, so most people didn't mess with me. I had met a man through someone I thought was a good friend at a party. It turns out that she really just loved drinking and was in with some questionable people. The guy was named Tom. He seemed nice enough. Charming, handsome, somewhat intelligent. My friend tried to set me up with him, but I wasn't interested. I was the DD and I was driving my friend home. She had invited Tom to come with us, even though I had no desire to bring him home, which would have been very much out of the way. But I was too nice to directly say no, so we all get into my car. I tried to drop him off first, but he was being very vague and wanted to go for a drive instead. That's a red flag, I know that now. My friend was adamant about just going home, so I felt forced to drop her off first. Boy, I was a silly young woman at the time. So I drop off my friend and end up what I thought was a nice conversation. He was talking about his ambitions and dreams. Something about wanting to work at Disney or as an animator or something. Eventually, I get it out of him where I can drop him off. I remember it being a strange location, but I thought nothing more of it. A few days later, I was in our basement at home on the family computer. The days of MSN Messenger and LimeWire. It was late at night, my back was towards all the windows because of the location of the desk. I hear my big brother leave the house to drive his girlfriend home. A few minutes later, the hair on the back of my neck stands up as I hear a tapping at the basement window. I furiously messaged friends on MSN Messenger telling them what was going on. I was frozen in place. I didn't want to turn around to potentially see a maniac face framed in my window. My parents were 2 floors up asleep and I couldn't yell out to them to wake them up without alerting whoever is at the window. The person tapped at every window of the basement. I prayed it was my brother playing a trick on me. To get to those windows, the person would have to walk up to our driveway through our gate and around half the house in our backyard. It must have lasted a half hour or longer. The tapping continued, and it was horrifying and I was terrified. What if it wasn't my brother and he forgot to lock the door when he left? I didn't know what to do. I stayed in my chair until a good hour went by with no noise before I bolted to my bedroom and I locked my door. I stayed awake until I heard my brother come home. The next day, I asked my brother about it. He looked worried and very confused when I explained what had happened. He adamantly refused, having played a trick on me, saying that he left immediately with his girlfriend. Mom and Dad heard the entire story too, and Dad went into full-blown psycho cop mode, interrogating me with a fatherly concern. It came out that I met that guy Tom. Dad stopped cooking breakfast and looked intently at me asking if it was Tom Smith. I confirmed yes. He immediately informed me that I was never to speak to that person again and to cut all ties. He was well known to the police as being a peeping Tom, and having committed break-in enters too. Dad suspected that it was Tom scouting our place, and trying to get my attention when he saw me alone after my brother had left. Apparently, my friend told him my phone number and address after that party. I've since cut all ties with her as well. Man, people are crazy. I've alluded to this story a few times in previous posts, but I'm finally doing it now. Sorry for the wait. I've been busy with wedding stuff for Sarge and I, but here I am, so let's hit it. We are on our honeymoon and I'm writing this on the plane as we hit another destination. Sarge, my at-the-time boyfriend, and I were visiting Russia together. We had seen his hometown before, but now we were in a different, undisclosed city or town. It was snowing, of course, I mean it is Russia, but we were still walking around. It was like a cultured village, but a little more modern. It was rustic, if that's the word. So, the snow obviously doesn't bother anyone there, except for me. Sarge has a couple of layers on, sure, but I'm bundled up as if we were in a blizzard. Even Comrade, our service dog from Russia, was fine. He wasn't shivering at all, and believe me, I was checking. We ended up going into this cute, diner-type establishment that serves stuff like mostly soup and sandwiches, but it's not like I could read the menu, so I just told Sarge to order me whatever he was having and that I would be good. We were sitting there for a while, just chatting away about random stuff that Sarge used to do as a kid. It's irrelevant, but here's one that I distinctly remember. When Sarge was like 10 or so, he had built a snowman in his yard that were like 3 or 4 feet tall. Then the neighborhood jerks down the street came marching, and they kicked all of his snowmen down. Upset, Sarge rebuilt them after they left, but poured lots of water on them so they turned completely to ice. When the bullies came back again later, one went to kick one of these snowmen and screamed in pain, and had a broken foot or toe because of it. Sarge's mother was about to punish him, but his father was too proud to let her do that. Anyway, sorry. Just as we got our food, this big group of people came in and sat in the tables and booths to our left. These people were evidently Serbian. When Sarge told me that quietly, I asked, "How do you know? They sound Russian to me." Yeah, Slavic accents sound really similar, but if you're Slav, you can tell the difference. Okay, babe, but why are they whispering? Because they're in the... And since we both know ASL, I taught him myself. He fingerspelled M-O-B. The what? Mouthing and fingerspelling. Mob. Oh, like the... I fingerspelled out mafia. Mafia is the Italian mob. Oh, that makes sense. So, we're sitting next to the Serbian mob and on the other side, some normal, wholesome-looking Russians. We're gonna be okay, yeah? Oh, of course, there are mostly Russians in here, they wouldn't try anything. So, we're eating a little bit, and Sarge isn't nervous or tense at all, but I am. He doesn't seem phased at all to be sitting next to the mob. But the Russians on the other side of us keep eyeing the Serbs every now and then, like they're a little bit stressed out. The Serbs are a bit rowdy, kinda loud. Mostly 99% men. They had nice clothes and they were smoking. Probably everybody reading this knows that I have foreign accent syndrome, which causes me to unintentionally mimic other accents that I hear, or just start speaking random ones at random time. This time, I was getting a Serbian one by sitting next to the Serbs. Again, I thought in my head that it was just a Russian one from talking to Sarge. That still happens today. I'll be living my life and then randomly have a Russian accent from Sarge. I thought at the time that that's what this was. As it was getting stronger and Sarge could hear it, he says, "Stop talking." Huh? Shh. I look at him like I'm saying, "What the heck is your problem?" Sarge then signed to me, "You sound Serbian." I have the oh crap look. Hey, don't worry about it. As long as you just sign instead of talk, maybe calm down so your accent goes away, you'll be fine. And don't worry about it, love. In my head, I'm still worried because Sarge isn't fluent in sign language yet. He knew enough at the time, but he wasn't great. At this time, Comrade is now starting to get a little antsy under the table, sensing my anxiety. So I pet him and it makes me feel better. Sure enough, the server comes over and asks something. Sarge translates and asks me, "Do you want to try anything to drink?" I didn't drink and I still don't really drink, but I wanted to try kvass for the heck of it. My fingers spell it out, but he doesn't get it. He keeps asking me to repeat it and I keep going slower and slower, and eventually, I get so stressed between everything that I just end up saying, "Kvass." He goes a little pale. Someone from the Serbian side goes, "Hey, she's one of us." This is roughly the conversation. None of it was in English, so while this was happening, I was just sitting there all dumb. Sarge translated later, "Mind your businesses. She is our business. She is Serbian. She's American, now go back to your meal. Who are you to talk to me like that? We can ask you the same thing. This American you speak of, which is a perfect Serbian accent, a likely story. And if you know what's good for you, you'll apologize." The entire Russian side of the restaurant really gets upset by this. Now it becomes a swearing match between the Serbs and the Russians. It's not even about me anymore, thank God. About 3 minutes later, while the stuff is still going strong, I really have to pee. The problem, Sarge doesn't want me to leave his sight for obvious reasons, but it's not like the mob would let me get up to walk to the bathroom, since he was the one who kind of helped instigate the whole thing. A few more servers come in from the back and try to defuse the situation or throw the Serbs out, but they're not having it. I'm about to seriously pee my pants, so I got YOLO mode and just got up and went with Comrade, during all the chaos, to slip into the bathroom. After I relieved myself, I'm thinking, you know what? I'll just stay in here until Sarge comes and gets me, and we can make a run for it. Or maybe I'll wait for the mob to leave. Waiting out in the bathroom didn't sound like a bad strategy at the time. I grabbed my phone to text this to Sarge, but I freaking left my phone at the table. Of all the times to not have my phone. I tried to come up with a new plan. There's no way that I can just waltz back out there. Should I try to get outside? No, that's probably stupid, right? Well, I was stranded in there. Someone else comes into the bathroom and I hear a very heavy Russian accent say, "Excuse me, ma'am." I poke my head out of the stall. It's a server. Apparently Sarge asked her to help me out with the 7% of English she knew. She gives me my phone and I start rapidly trying to message Sarge. The lady, I'll call her Olga. "So, are you scared of Serbs?" "Not until now. I mean, should I be?" My best friend that I mentioned in some of the posts, Luna, and her boyfriend Peter are both Serbian. Peter grew up with Sarge in Russia, though. Luna and I met in 7th grade, and the rest is history. They're terrific people. No, Serbs and Russians are usually like family, but these guys are mafia. I decided then that I really liked Olga. We started playing with Comrade to pass the time, and eventually, Sarge came to the bathroom and we sped walked out of the restaurant, while the other servers kept the mob members from leaving or following us. Then we left. Later, Sarge acted like it was no big deal and it never even happened.